everybody, welcome to the Cat Invited Show, the show where I do the very tickle-tastic telling you whether a movie's worth your time or not and sort of spot in your movie collection. As always, I'm Ash, and today we're going to be talking about Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. Again, because, you know, it came out on Blu-ray and now there's 30 extra minutes of footage, and believe it or not, yeah, that warrants a discussion, and you know... So, of course, as many of you know now, BVS The Ultimate Cut has finally hit store shelves. It's that 3-hour director's cut we were promised before the movie even came out, where they were like, hey, we cut a bunch out of this, and we were like, shouldn't be a huge problem, we'll just watch that later, we'll come watch this theatrical version, which is clearly a masterpiece. And then everyone watched it, and it split the fandom like Moses split the Red Sea into people who were like, BVS is a comic book masterpiece, and then people who were like, BVS is bullshit! Like, there were people, and they were going at each other's throats, and then there was me, and I was like, BVS was good! Like, I had very, very strange thoughts on Batman vs. Superman, because the first time I saw it, I was very mixed. I was just like, oh man, like, Batfleck is awesome and all, but this is really incoherent. Like, it's really messy and jumbled. It feels like scenes are missing. I don't know what's going on here. Then the second time I saw it, I realized all those problems. I recognized them all one more time. But this time around, they didn't bother me. I was more like, am I having fun? And I wound up loving the movie, so I've been on both sides of the coin, so going into the Ultimate Edition, I didn't know what to expect. I was like, will I hate it? Will I love it? Will I make love? Like, I do not know, like I do now, because I've seen it and everything, and I'll say this, as far as this Ultimate Edition goes, the original theatrical cut of Batman vs. Superman, it was a good movie that I really enjoyed. This is one of the best comic book movies I have ever seen, and wow, who would have known 30 minutes would make so much of a difference? Fair warning, from this point onward, I'll probably be saying some spoilers. I'm not gonna go deep into the movie because I fell asleep in Star Trek last night, so I need to go see it again, but there will be some spoilers. If something pops in my head, I'm not gonna just zip up. So, you know, if you haven't seen Batman vs. Superman, go buy the Ultimate Cut. I've already told you, it's amazing, it's incredible. That's all you need to know. Go buy it, enjoy it, then come back and watch this and talk to me about it. We good? We good. So once again, I can't reiterate this enough. Like, Batman vs. Superman is the most divisive film I have seen in ages. I can't remember the last time a film was this divisive, and I was one of those people. I understood both sides. I was like, there is good things here, but there are bad things here. And one of all my problems were really story-based, because as you're watching the movie, there are some big plot holes you couldn't ignore, or there was some confusing things where you're like, this doesn't make sense, this doesn't make sense. And I'm here to tell you, all of that, all those times where you like, I feel like a scene is missing here, you were right, because they will add on to a scene, or add a completely new scene. And with that new scene, with that little bit of exposition, it'll answer your problem. If you have a problem with Batman vs. Superman, you can look at the Ultimate Cut and be like, I had a problem with this, and it will fire back at you and go like, oh, here, have some exposition that teaches you what that means, tells you why this happens, tells you everything you need to know. And guess what? Batman vs. Superman, it's not incoherent anymore. In fact, it makes so much damn sense, I can't even believe it was cut in the first place. Like, if I'm gonna go into certain specifics, one of the biggest things this movie changed from the original cut was that Africa scene. Because I know we all watched that Africa scene in the beginning where the bad guys, they shot everyone, and then they were like, we'll blame Superman, and then it was the lady on screen, she was like, oh, Superman, he killed everyone, what the fuck, Superman? And all of us came out of that like, well, what? They shot him, so Superman came down and shot people with bullets? Like, what? What does this mean? That's stupid, that makes no sense, what the hell? But then, in the Ultimate Cut, it's like, yeah, we cut around that, we shouldn't have, but here's what actually happened. You see, they shot those people, but then they burned them. You know, like Superman's heat vision. They made it believable. They made it believable for people to be scared of Superman in this universe, because he is capable of these things, and throughout the entire movie, they go back to that. It becomes this big turning point for the movie, and you're like, it all makes sense now! And is this an erection or just a better understanding? Maybe it's both. Speaking of Superman as well, one of my other problems with the original movie was there wasn't a lot of him. Like, there wasn't enough Superman, there was never enough Clark Kent. I always wanted more Clark Kent in this movie. And in this movie, that delivers in the exact way I wanted it to, because one of the big issues I had with that theatrical cut was the fact, with Batman, you completely got where he was coming from when he didn't like Superman. Was he being a little overdramatic? Sure, but you got where he was coming from. You got his motivation inside of the story, whereas Superman, you were like, I don't know what his fucking problem is. He's just angry or something, I don't know. Yeah, guess what? The Ultimate Edition fixes that too, because it adds so much more Clark Kent into this movie. We see Clark Kent going into Gotham and like finding out about Batman, studying Batman, finding out from eyewitnesses firsthand what happens, everything. Finding out that Bat brand that we all thought was so cool, maybe it's not so cool, because maybe it puts a target on your head when you go to prison and gets you fucking killed. So it gives Clark Kent all that time to do his Clark Kent shit. Not his Superman shit, his Clark Kent shit. And by the end of it, you're like, Superman has motivation now. Superman has motivation to not like Batman, so when Batman comes around the corner and Superman's being a dick and he's like, when your light comes on in the sky, don't go to it. You understand why he said that. That is the biggest thing this movie does now, is the Ultimate Cut. It takes motivation that was missing, an exposition that needed to happen, and it throws it all together into a director's cut that every time I finish a quote, I'm gonna say this, I'm baffled they cut it. I'm baffled they cut this, because it leads to such a more coherent and understanding film. I will say, not everything it adds is incredible and useful and like, oh my god, yes. Like, for one thing, that R rating it has that we were all really excited about, because they were like, oh, there's gonna be an R-rated cut. And then they showed the trailer where Amy Adams was in the bathtub and all our minds went to a place they shouldn't have gone. Yeah, that R-rated, it means nothing. You know what it means? It means when Batman hits a guy, there's some blood. That's it. That is all the R rating adds. Really nothing to really write home about, sit there and be like, oh yeah, that changed the movie, because it didn't. It didn't. And on top of that, we finally found out who Jenna Malone was playing in the movie, because she completely got cut out of the theatrical cut, and I was like, Injustice, what the fuck? You can't just cut Jenna Malone out of the cut, because once again, in my mind, I had an idea. I wanted Jenna Malone to be Barbara Gordon so bad. I was like, be Barbara Gordon, be Oracle, be Batgirl, be whatever Barbara Gordon you need to be. Now, please. And in this cut, I kind of understand why they cut her, because she's just a lady. Like, she's not anyone like, oh, this character. No, she works with Lois Lane. And yeah, the scenes she's in lead to exposition that makes Superman, you know, more of a, oh, I get it, you know, kind of character. But still, I was kind of like, oh, I get it, and Jenna Malone's here, and I love you, Jenna Malone, but I just feel like you were wasted when you should have been something more. So in the end, the Batman v Superman Ultimate Cut turns a movie that theatrically was really, really good, but left a lot to be wanted. And it takes that movie and it gives you what you wanted in the form of exposition, in the form of story, in the form of coherency. And it leads to it becoming one of the best I've ever seen. Not just of the year, but of the genre. Like, I'll say this, that Marvel DC war we got going on, that's not the war in my head anymore. I completely prefer this movie to Civil War. And don't get me wrong, I love Civil War. I saw that a second time as well and loved it. But for me, the real battle in my head now, and this is going to shock you, is whether I like this more than Zootopia. Like, that's the battle going in my head right now. That's how much I love this cut. And I get why they cut it down for business reasons, like no one's going to see a 3-hour movie except for me. And also, when it's 3 hours, you limit the amount of times you can show it in a theater in a day. But still, man, it was a crime to cut this movie, because everything they cut led to a much, much, vastly underwhelming product. Whereas when you edit it back in, we get a masterpiece. I'll call it that now. It's a masterpiece. I love this cut. I love everything about it. I know it's 3 hours long, but I want to watch it again right now, over and over and over, but I can't, because as I stated before, I fell asleep in Star Trek, so I need to go see it again. But you get the point. It's amazing. It's incredible. It's near perfection. I love it. Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, the Ultimate Cut gets an A out of 10. There's a book in there. A out of 10. Roll the thing.